2022 marks 60 years since the release of Dr. No. It was the 5th of October 1962 when Dr. No was unleashed into cinemas and cinema history changed forever. So on this kind of walkabout, I'm going to be talking about Dr. No. It's quite an interesting film to watch actually, because even though it's almost 60 years old, it's quite clearly quite dated, it feels very much embedded in a very particular era. And I think if you're nostalgic for 60s spy fiction, this probably isn't on the top of your to-watch list, because it's hardly a From Russia with Love type story. But it is certainly very entertaining. I think the simplicity of the plot has always been something that I've enjoyed. It's always been something that has been able to work very effectively. I mean, it is the first film, so you're not expecting much in the way of complexity. It's very simple, and simplicity in most instances seems to work. Sean Connery, in his first ever appearance as Bond, is magnetic. It's a decidedly suave and sophisticated appearance, which works incredibly well, I think. There aren't too many flaws, and I'd argue that it's probably the best James Bond debut appearance we've ever had so far. Who knows what will happen going forward. And then of course you have the locations. Jamaica, which is the most notable location where a bulk of the film is set. I guess the thing is that Jamaica is such an amazing location, and you get great escapism by going to Jamaica circa 1962. Now, we'll go through the characters. So we've got James Bond, tick, we've done him. We'll carry on. So we've got the likes of Quarrel. So Quarrel is effectively Bond's ally in this entry. He's a very likeable character, he's very simple. There isn't really too much to talk about with Quarrel, because he doesn't really... his presence is slightly lackluster at times. But I do feel that Quarrel is a very endearing character on the whole. He's very likeable. So therefore I'd argue that he's a very memorable character, even though he doesn't actually appear to you that much when you actually think about it. So once you've thought about Quarrel, there are other characters to think about. For example, there's Ursula Andress's Honey Rider, who doesn't appear until quite late in the film, which is obviously that iconic scene where she comes out of the ocean. It's a very, very, very memorable scene. Her character is a bit two-dimensional, to be honest. I know it was 1962 and female characters hadn't really been invented yet, but there's not much of a character. She's very childlike, very 2D character, but very iconic in terms of the imagery that we get with that. However, the plot of Dr. No, and make it sound like I hate Dr. No, I actually really like Dr. No. The plot is very simple. It works, I think, very effectively. I think the fact that Doctor No as a character is this sort of hidden character for a large portion of the film is really nice. We don't see him until near the end. He's just shrouded in mystery. Same in the novel, actually. He's this mysterious character, and it adds a lot to his character, knowing that he's this unknown. However, it backfires somewhat, because when you do meet him, he's just some bloke with metal hands, and it does feel a bit anticlimactic based on all the hype that was sort of built up about, oh, it's Doctor No, ooh. And you meet him and he's just some guy. I mean, Joseph Wiseman's fine in the role, but he's not given enough to work with. In fact, I'd argue he's given incredibly little to work with. However, his chemistry with Sean Connery is very engaging. It works very well. As a film that is coming up 60, has it aged well? In general, I'd say it has. No, it doesn't feel like it came out yesterday, but it does feel like a film that's kind of, it's irrelevant to say it's 60. It feels like it's more like it doesn't have a number attached to it. It's quite hard to describe. No, it's not timeless. I'm not saying that. But it doesn't feel attached to any specific number. It feels like it's a combination of brand new and very old. However, the very legacy of a film like Doctor No is not to be understated. It is basically the most influential, or one of the most influential spy films ever, just by virtue of the fact that it spawned the James Bond series. It's not a perfect film by any stretch, but I always enjoy it whenever I watch it, and I watch it on almost an annual basis. It has a very good pace to it. It's not very long, and it feels you can just, sit back and enjoy it, and it's there and done. It's a very easy watch, which is odd because it's the very first outing, so you'd think it'd be a bit alienating or a bit weird or a bit something a bit off about it. And yes, the formula hasn't clicked yet. A lot of the Bond-isms haven't been fully established, but it is still very enjoyable. It has a lot going for it and a lot to praise it for. I sound like I'm rambling, and I kind of am, because as you can probably guess, I'm out and about and I'm sort of an experiment. I'll probably do more for Rush of Love and Goldfinger, etc. Generally, it's just an excuse for me to talk about Doctor No, which is a wonderful film. And Bernard Lee is great as M. Lois Maxwell is great as Miss Moneypenny. And while Desmond isn't in this film, almost all the elements of the classic Connery era cast are already established in the very first film. And what I would describe Doctor No as a classy film. Well, no, actually I wouldn't. I call it a classic film, that's what I would call it. Because it's of that age now. It's of an age, it's of an era that is so distant from what you get in a spy film now that people go back to something like Doctor No to remind them of what spy fiction used to be like. Anyway, those are my musings on Doctor No. I'm sure I'll make another one of these for From Rush of Love and maybe subsequent films beyond.